Hey there. Hope everybody's having a great winter break so far. Time to read some course evaluations. I'm ready. I'm ready for these horrible comments. Online semester. Don't have high hopes for these. For those tuning in live or not live, feel free to leave me more of your hateful commentary in response to other people's. Tell me if you agree or disagree. So I'm doing this because I think it motivates people to do these in coming years if you know that I actually read them. Um, that's really the only reason. I just think people will be more likely to do this if it's obvious that I read them, and the only way to make that a sure thing, to communicate that I read them, is to read them live. That's the format we get them in, and it's terrible because it's so wide. It's impossible to zoom in on this thing. I can't. It's the best I can do. Sorry. I'll read them out loud. We're going to start with 435 because that's where I got the highest response rate at only 68%. That means that like a third of the people who filled it out just skipped all the questions and just hit submit. I think I made like one of the questions mandatory. Let's see. There we go. The multiple choice here was mandatory. So 89% of people filled it out. They put at least something for this one, although they probably just marked no answer. And then the remainder actually answered the questions. So thanks to those of you who actually answered the questions. Appreciate that a lot. How's everybody's break going so far besides that? Hopefully going well. All right, let's check it out. Let's see what people thought. I learned a lot about cybersecurity, a lot about the client and server side of computer science. Thanks. Networks and cybersecurity. First of all, I don't write these questions, by the way, these first few. These, like, the first 8 or whatever, those are all department questions. And yeah, I find them kind of odd. I mean, they're obviously very wordy and complicated. What did you learn in this course? You're kind of like echoing back to me information that I already know, hopefully. So, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the department questions, but at least we've got those standardized across the department there. It was engaging and interesting and had challenging assignments. Thank you. Learned the basics of networking, network security, and how to implement network code in a proper manner. This course exceeded my expectations. It has taught me so much I never even knew about. I found the material very engaging and enjoyed the challenge some of the assignment brought. Yes, it stimulated further interest in the topic. Nice, thank you. I learned about the various layers of network communication protocol and how to write Java applications that communicate over the internet using TCP and UDP. Okay. You know what? Most of these are just summaries. So I'm going to skim them and pick out the good ones. But I like these so far. Nice comments. Thank you. Basics of networking. Since it took so long to actually, I guess you missed get, to actually get a working server VM, it did not meet my expectations since we really didn't get to interact through the web like we should have been. Agree. Sorry about that, guys. Ugh. If only we had the VMs for longer. Many of the lecture streams pertain to information I would have not expected to hear about. Cool. Glad it was a little bit above your expectation. Learned about how to make network layer applications. Glad to see your interest is further stimulated. Taught the basics of how information is sent over the internet. Yeah, sounds about right. Met your expectations. Good. Interesting and engaging, but sometimes too detailed in some aspects while lacking detail in other aspects. Way to split the difference there. Thanks for telling me which ones. Hopefully you told me later on. Otherwise, that's about as useless as any other comment. Sometimes it was good, but sometimes it was not. I learned about the different network layers and how they relate to each other. Very engaging and interesting. Inner workings of various layers, how to send messages. Yep. Underlying implications of cybersecurity. Yep. Very useful skills as a developer in terms of how the internet works, how packets are sent and received, a very simple way of implementing security through encoding, etc. Material was very interesting. Wish the course was split in two so we had more time to go over things in depth with the RVB assignments. The one we had was spectacular. Also taught me what an enum was. Boy, you shouldn't have learned an enum here, but glad you learned it. Enums are useful. Learned how traffic is created and sent across the internet, and the security measures and vulnerabilities can be produced about it. Pretty engaging, stimulated interest. And the last comment, I dropped this course. How did you get to do the review if you dropped it? And why did you do it if you dropped it? Okay, well, I guess, I mean, you don't really need the extra credit if you're not going to get credit for it. But I guess thank you for reviewing it, even though you dropped it. Let's skip ahead to some of the fun ones. We can go back to those if we have time. Skip ahead to the ones I put in with the multiple choices. Regarding your progress in learning. Oh, nope, that's one of the boilerplate ones. All right, here's where the custom questions start. These are the ones I get to specify. So I wrote these questions myself here. Somebody asked, how many people dropped this class? I don't remember. It. Yeah, some people never show up and they kind of drop. So if you check the system, you don't really get a good estimate. I think it was 2 people who like really dropped it, like they actually attended and then at some point decided they wanted to stop, not like they no-showed or something like that. I think we had something like 2 real drops. There's about 20, 21 people or something around there. I guess that would make sense then if we finished with 19 and there was 21 to start. I think that's about right. You can also see technically when somebody drops, they'll eventually vanish from Canvas. So when you look and see all the other people on Canvas, if you look in the course, you'll also see when fewer people show up there. So if you ever want to know who's dropping your class down the road, just like watch Canvas and see if the people count that you can view goes down over time. Compare it to your other online courses. Rate the quality of the instructor in this course if you have not taken another online course. Please respond with no answer. I'm surprised how many of you took other online courses. I know we've been online for 2 semesters now, but it's a lot of answers. So glad you guys are taking some of these courses on the internets here. And looks like most of the responses are very positive. So thank you. I appreciate that, guys. I'm surprised actually at how many are positive. I thought I'd get a couple significantly worses there, maybe on account of the VM or something, but looks like for the most part you guys seem to enjoy it. So that's great. I'm glad you appreciated it. Provide some feedback for me. The use of Discord and YouTube Live was far superior than my other courses that use Zoom. Good. I'm going to stick with that model next time. I was hoping that it would be better, and I think that it was. So thank you for that feedback, and thanks for the people who answered the survey early on that gave me the confidence to switch, because I think I am the only person at the institution doing it this way. I liked the assignments and found them challenging and helpful. It was helpful that the homework build off each other. Cool. Dr. Guerrero is always prepared and had top-notch streaming equipment. That's right. I got my Razer keyboard that goes clickety-click. That means that I'm top-notch. It's also pink, which I don't think you guys ever noticed. All right. I mean, you know, it's kind of the bare minimum if you're doing this kind of job. If you do it every day, I mean, this whole streaming setup probably costs, you know, less than $200. But if it's the job that I do every day, you know, I can really skimp out on it. The most expensive part, you know, aside from your mouse and keyboard and your peripherals that you already have, is a high-quality webcam, especially during the peak of the pandemic. I didn't have a webcam before because I never stream with a camera. So, I mean, but that was like $50 for an 8K camera, or for an 8 megapixel 4K camera. So, I mean, I know a lot of people like to try to make do with kind of what's in their laptop. Laptop cameras are never very good because they have really, really thin screens, laptops. And, you know, there's not a lot of room for a camera. And then, you know, your little $30 Logitech thing you can buy at Micro Center is fine, but, you know, it's not going to be as nice as, you know, a $50, again, 8 megapixel camera. And that's all you need. You know, anything beyond that, as you can see, the box with my face is so small that anything beyond that would be a waste of bandwidth. Nate made fun of my preparedness. What did I do to you, Nate? Always prepared. Although Discord was largely an effective means of class communication, especially outside class, I think there is something to be said for being able to ask questions verbally during class rather than typing them out in a chat window. True. Wish I could come up with a good way to do that. Next semester, maybe I'll pipe in Discord audio or something into the main chat. I don't know. It's the difficulty with all of that kind of stuff is then I have to do all the audio management and everything in order to get it out to everybody. Even if you're on like Zoom, you know, you have to mute everybody and unmute people when they want to speak. That's a kind of a pain in the butt. It really distracts from what I'm doing. Oh, I didn't finish this comment. Really didn't dislike anything. You ran a much cleaner class than any other professor I had. Something I expect from a tech genius. Oh, tech genius. That's a good comment. I like that one. I'm going to quote that one in my performance review and say, tech genius. Discord and not Zoom was good. I like Discord in all caps. I know this pandemic has been hard for teachers, but Gerard did a really good job this semester. I gave myself the better adjective. Especially in comparison to other teachers. He always graded quickly, gave clear and concise feedback on projects, and his exams are great. Thanks. Glad you enjoyed them. More code examples would have been very helpful. I agree. It always takes me so long to make those and properly document them, comment them, and make sure that they're good practices and not just, you know, crappy snippets. You know, I don't make nearly as many as I should have. So hopefully next time I teach it, I'll have what I made this time and then some extras, and that'll be enough. But yeah, such a pain to produce code examples. I really enjoyed all of the information about how networks work because I never felt like I had a good understanding of how information gets from one machine to another before taking this course. Magic, obviously. I also really liked the competitive assignments because I felt more engaged and there was more opportunities to get creative. One potential point of improvement would be offering a few more code examples for reference on some assignments beforehand. I was able to complete everything pretty successfully, but sometimes I felt like I did not know information I needed to know going into an assignment before I started working on it. True, but the unfortunate magic of networks means that a lot of the time you are just figuring out what boilerplate stuff you need to put in order to get it to work. Things like datagrams where you have to like declare this byte buffer and then extract from it. It's very silly. And if I give you the example, you'll just use it and you'll never learn the silliness. So in some cases, I like that you have to figure it out and go, wow, this is really dumb. Like for the IP config assignment, remaking that, because that information is so weirdly hard to pull up. The steps that you have to go through, maybe a lot of you don't even remember, like having to collect all the network adapters on the machine and then ask them for their MAC, figure out if they were loopback or not to filter them out. Just silly. So hopefully that stuff gets easier in the future, and then I won't have to force you to go through the silliness to learn it. I found the course material very interesting. Less technical difficulty induced stress of exams would be nice. If we have an issue like exam 1, knowing we'll have an equivalent or more time to solve it would be nice before starting. Yeah, that was my bad, definitely. Please, more RVB assignments. I wanted to do one more in the last couple of weeks there, but then we got the VM. The last one would have been a competitive cheating at color grid assignment. I actually wrote it up and everything, and I had the server going. So you were all going to use the previous homework where you had wrote the cheats. Then you were going to come together to try to make one secure color grid server as a team, and then also as a team mess up somebody else's. And the win condition was basically going to be that you got your color on the screen way more than the other team could get like a reasonable person to get it. So I would play like a reasonable trying to have a good time player, me, and then if you could make me not have a good time, then you won, basically. So that was going to be that challenge. The one we had and the color grid contest were really fun while also fostering teamwork and showing application of what we are learning. Well, if you want another mildly group-based assignment, we are also going to have a mobile application development class next semester. If you've taken 328, you take that too. I love the way this course was taught online. Could not be any better. I thought how the course was taught was pretty good. Enjoyed the times related while we were covering class to real-world events and examples. And then I dropped the course. Did you answer I dropped the course for every question? That's a considerable amount of effort to go through. Yes, you did. That's a lot of effort to Control-C and Control-V that into every box. All right. Well, maybe you had some answers at some point, too. Where am I? Skipped some stuff. Where'd I go? Here I am. Okay. Nope, actually I was in the right place. All right. Provide feedback about the course. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It's been challenging but worthwhile. Sure it'll benefit me in the future. Awesome. Course has proven very useful to me in my daily life. No, I hope it's not useful in your daily life. I hope you don't have to mess with computers every day. Every time I have to change these settings, it just makes me angry. The more I know about networks, the angrier I get because I just realize how stuff is breaking. Like when I have to, reset like a smart plug or a smart bulb or something because it lost connection. Like, grr, why didn't you just retry? Why do I have to turn you on and off, you stupid thing? uh, Better understand how computers and networks communicate and how to diagnose connection difficulties. Yeah. Did help me improve my programming and networking techniques. Techniques. Only course I like this semester. Thanks. I hope you like more stuff next time, though. This course's workload was excessive, but the content was interesting. All right. Fair. Overall, I liked the course. Thought the information I learned was well worth the time and effort. Understand the topics much better than I did a few months ago. Thank you. Fair. My number one complaint is all the issues from the VM. Totally agree. Hate the VM. From what I could pick up, IT was a little behind on getting the OS stuff. Well, I don't want to throw them under the bus, but they didn't really come up with the AWS thing until the final weeks. I don't know if they were talking about it internally, but to me, it was just kind of a, we're working on a way to get you an open port somewhere, and we'll get back to you kind of deal. So I debated actually just setting up a server myself, because it's not that big a deal. I already have a couple at home anyway. But with a bunch of students connecting to it and doing random stuff, I thought, maybe it's not a great idea to do that myself. Plus you guys already pay for your education and everything. You don't need my homemade basement server. That's just silly. Behind getting the AWS stuff set up for this, they robbed us of some of the more substantial items in the course, such as RVB assignments, the MySQL server communication stuff, and having a class server for larger projects. I understand that COVID made things difficult, but it would be nice to have time to test the networking aspects of our network applications on something other than our own devices on loopback or over the VM in a hastily put together way. Yep. I agree. The biggest issue is those NAT walls. Again, you have NAT on your home connections. That means you have to have forward ports to get anything working remotely. Most residential ISPs don't let you have port 80 at all. So, it's a big hassle to get anything working on your home machine. Hopefully next time around when we teach this, we'll get the AWSs up from the beginning. But if you check out the prices on those EC2s, just go look those up, those Amazon EC2 instance prices. You'll see, first of all, pretty steep. Second of all, billed hourly. So you guys probably racked up some serious bills over the course of your semester. Not that you're responsible for them. Just saying, pretty funny. Especially some of you that might have just left it open. Because it's just a browser tab if you're using the web client. I would love to see what the bill was at the end. It would be pretty funny. Love to have more RVB assignments. Such a wonderful idea. Thanks. I'll try to get more in next time. Course is pretty good. Felt this information is fairly important to anyone who'll work in the IT field. Yep, some of you will go to IT. I think most of you will need to know this anyway for your programming. All right, let's look at difficulty. Nobody thought this course. Okay, one person thought this course was somewhat easier. Nobody thought it was significantly easier, so I guess it was a pretty hard one. Not unexpected. It's some hard material, and we covered a lot. So, somewhat harder than other stuff. I get it. I think it's probably somewhat harder than a lot of my own stuff. So, I'll give it that. And workload. Significantly more work. Okay. Also agree. It was a pretty tough one. That was a lot of assignments. Basically weekly homework. That's a lot to do. So on this one, how many hours per week did you spend outside of class? When I made the slider, I thought, well, no one's going to put more than 10. But now I feel like I should have had numbers beyond 10. So the average looks like is 6, which is perfect because I plan all of my upper level courses like this for 6 hours outside of class as the estimate. So anything at the 300 level and above, my plan is to make it an average of 6 hours outside of class for the average person. It's basically how I structure it. Anything at the 200 level, I try to do about 3 or 4. At the 100 level, one or two, maybe three occasionally. So this is right on the money for me. That's what I'm looking for here, that I'm getting close to that 6-figure on the average. I like to see a pretty even distribution, so there's a lot of people on the 10 range and quite a few at the 2 range, but yeah, that's kind of how it's going to be on these upper electives. Some people are good at networking just intuitively, and some people take a little bit longer. Compared to all the online courses at JC, rate how well the instructor delivered this course in terms of tech utilized. Not sure how I'm going to get answers on this question. I thought the Zoom and the YouTube would be good, or the Discord and the YouTube would be better than Zoom, but the VMs are going to hold me back here, so let's see. Mostly significantly better and somewhat better. Thank you guys for that. In spite of the VM issues, I am very pleased that I got those ratings there. At least one rating of worse, so let's see the descriptions. The VMs were terrible. Often crashed during class, so it was hard to participate when asked to send things to the server. Couldn't participate in the extra credit activity because it did a forced restart during class time for some reason. Wouldn't let me reopen. Sounds like the VM to me. Zoom, this teacher uses Discord. I don't know if that's... You like Discord or you like Zoom, the way that's structured. I can go either way. I would have liked more chances to talk with the class. The YouTube streaming was perfect for lectures. There is little opportunity for students to chip in for that outside of text messages. True. Yeah, I'm going to have to definitely come up with some way to get you to talk more. Maybe just more red versus blue assignments where you can at least talk to one another. Computer science virtual machines need some work in asterisks. Yep. Professor made great use of Discord and YouTube to deliver content in a way that's easy to receive and go back to again. IT, please make more effort to get the VM and the OS stuff we need up and running for the class. Yep. The CSVM made this class unbearable because it doesn't work properly. It was required to this class to work. Okay. Yeah, so it sounds like the negative comments there about the VM, which I agree, it's not great. Hopefully when you guys go out into the professional world, your employer doesn't have that kind of system. They have something a little bit more user-friendly. Definitely a few of those kinds of things out there in the world. VM-style things for even professionals, and yeah, they're definitely pretty irritating. Compared to your other courses, rate the usefulness. Very useful. Many of you rated it useful. That's surprising. Thank you. I thought that most people would think that they probably weren't going to work in networks because, you might not have many applications, don't have any networks at all. I guess that's becoming a lot less true today, but I thought some of you might be going for, a job where you don't have to do this, or maybe you work on a different part of the system. So the fact that all of you think it's useful and it's going to come into play, I think that's probably true, and thank you for that. Interesting concepts will not likely use what I learned in the future. Maybe you won't. Maybe you will. Programming, more programming, learning programming on stuff I'm not familiar with has been an awesome experience. Good. Keep on learning. The more you can program, the better. Using resources to find code and help write programs has been a great experience. Good. Glad that it was a good one for you. I think of the different things you can find info about, networks is one of the easier ones because you can almost always Google the answer. It's usually not something you need a book or something to figure out. Preferred the programming aspect. Wireshark is interesting as well as Nmap 2, but I still prefer programming. Me too, but I use Wireshark a lot to debug my networked applications, which I didn't see a ton of use there, but a couple of you use it occasionally. I find it answers the question of did the packet send or not a lot more cleanly than trying to figure it out in Java. Everything pertaining to hashing and salting as well as various real-world applications of cybersec and hacking incidents are very useful. Cool. I like going over those. Those are fun. Aside from the network's content being interesting, it was really cool to actually make an application with a GUI. I've never done that before this class. Oh, that's a shame. You should have done more GUI stuff here. I always do GUI in my classes. It's only fun with a GUI. It's important to have some basic understanding of Internet protocol when entering the computer science field. So all of our material regarding that was significant. The cybersec portion of the course was very infrequent, though. Yeah, it was pretty hard to integrate it with the remote setting and the lack of the VMs. I don't really want to have you guys mess with your own systems, and then I don't really want to mess with the school-owned VMs. Only when we got to the Amazon servers did I say, forget it, we can just have Zippy Share open without ad block. Who cares? TCP UDP. I have no doubt that server management TCP UDP will be useful to me in the professional space one day. Understanding how the internet works will be helpful personally. Cool. Understanding different layers of networking helped me understand other aspects of IT. Understanding how networking works clears up so many things that were previously magic. Hey, I'm glad you feel that way, but as far as I'm concerned, there's still magic. Magic to me, anyway. Rate how interesting the material was you learned in this course compared to the other courses. Wow, really good responses here. Thank you, guys. Very interesting. Glad you found it interesting. Red vs. Blue challenge felt like a real-world application. Glad you enjoyed that. Favorite part was writing networked applications in Java. I think that was the whole class, but thank you. Cybersecurity is a very real and growing field in the world of computer science. I think future students in this major field would benefit greatly taking this course. A lot of material information offered. Thank you. That was very interesting. I particularly liked the cybersecurity features in the Making Money Online lectures. I also really liked the Making Money Online stuff. That stuff is interesting to me. The market side of cybersec is not often discussed. I have never really delved into how networks work, so it's a fascinating first dive. I can't name a specific part of the course. Everything is fairly interesting. Thanks. Rate my fairness in terms of grading attention, enforcing rules, etc. Everyone voted either fair or somewhat fair. Thank you. Try to be as fair as possible, especially in a conventional, homework grade kind of course like this. I definitely want to give the fairest possible impression, most consistent possible impression. Rate my availability. Almost everyone said available or somewhat available. One person said somewhat. Okay, thank you again. I try to be as available as possible, at least on the digital channels, and this semester was all digital, so that was really easy for me. I mean, I am always answering my email when I'm at work. Compared to other online courses at JCU, pick the statement that best reflects your opinion. 3 people said it was the best online course they had. Thank you. And 6 people said it was one of the best. I also really appreciate that. Not a lot of comments in the negative section, so thank you for that. Hopefully you guys who left the negative ones explained here. I originally typed long answers for each, but then my survey didn't save on submission. Oh, darn it. That stupid survey software. I hope this wasn't the person who dropped and didn't answer any of the others. They just went back and put that for them. This class is good. Dr. Gray did a great job with communication and teaching online. I thought the content was interesting and helpful. Since we don't really learn about it in all the required classes, I'm fine with the structure, but maybe covering encryption more in depth and walking through the actual code would be helpful. Other than that, I had no issues. I think it should be offered again. If you want to cover encryption more in depth, there is a math class that's offered every year or two in the department that covers the mechanisms of encryption in more depth, like elliptic curve and stuff like that. I don't cover it because I don't even think I'm good enough at it to cover it. I don't think very many people are. Some people think they are, but the number of people who totally understand encryption, just beyond being able to use it, but being able to actually contribute to developing it or figuring out what's right or wrong about it, that's really probably in the dozens or maybe in the hundreds worldwide. It's not that many people. Garari seemed to be my only teacher technologically prepared to thrive in an online-based environment. Thank you. I try. This is one of the first online courses I've taken. I have nothing to compare it to. Okay, fair. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully next semester you don't have too many then. Very laid back but educational atmosphere. It's an online course about the internet. That it is. If this course was offered again in a post-pandemic environment, would you prefer it online? Ooh, interesting answers. I didn't think I'd have anybody prefer it online, but it actually looks like an almost even split with slightly more preference to online. Pretty cool. This course has benefits being online, both server issues and everything at JCU makes more sense, or being at JCU makes more sense for a class like this. Fair. The CSVMs are painfully slow. Yeah. It was much more convenient to be able to write code on my personal laptop and then transfer it to the VM for final testing than it would have been to try to use the VM throughout the development process. Oh yeah, using the VM for development is totally off the table, I think. I think anybody who has to do that is basically running at like half speed at best because it's slow. I always just copy everything there when I'm completely done. I don't even like fixing a couple lines here or there. If I have to make even small bug fixes, I'll just do them on my computer and then recopy. CS classes are easy to do online, and most of what we do is on a computer. It would be a terrible CS class if Zoom was used, though. Fair, thank you. I like having the ability to rewatch lectures. It really helped me for this class. Hey, now, I know from the YouTube stats that very few people actually rewatch the lectures. The YouTube views, there's like, the big peak on the day of the lecture, and then one or two in the coming week, and that's it. But it's nice that you can watch them if you miss them. That's definitely great. Other teachers should consider using YouTube or Twitch instead of Zoom. Twitch? Are you even allowed to stream educational content on Twitch? Can you do like CS class Twitch? Isn't it only for games, technically? I don't know. Maybe I'll switch to Twitch if YouTube ends up having unskippable or unblockable ads at some point. Definitely seems like they're moving in that direction. They've started, I know, adding ads to videos that aren't monetized. But AdBlocker still gets those for now, unless you watch on a phone without AdBlock. And lately they have been slipping through my pie hole, at least on my not rooted phone. So as YouTube gets more advert heavy, I might end up having to switch to something else. Each class should be required to have a Discord server. I don't know where I would have been in this course without those tools. I know for a fact that the content in this course was difficult, and I did much better in this course than other courses that did not give me the same tools. Thanks, I'm glad you appreciated your delivery mechanism here. RVB assignments and server stuff would have been much easier to do in person. I do better with in-person instruction regardless. Keeps me focused better. I think I also do better in person. The only thing I don't like in person is how tiny all the font is on the screen for the people sitting in the back. If all people could sit in the front somehow, in person would probably win every time. This course was made to be online. Cool. So yeah, something to think about. I don't know. Maybe we'll offer this online again if there's at least some kind of showing for it. That would be cool. Alright, I think I've done enough on this course for now. Maybe I'll go back to the boilerplate ones if people are still tuning in, but I want to give the other classes a fair shake at it. Let's go with technical writing next. I'll do the senior design one next. Tell the technical writing people that I'm doing theirs now in Discord. These people wrote a little bit more, I think, than the networks people. Actually about the same. Most people tend to write about one line across for their responses, it looks like. I always stop to read those multi-line ones, though, because that means they were very interested. Alright, let's check it out from the beginning. And again, I haven't seen any of these, so it's all new to me. Learned how to write resumes, tutorials, proposals, etc. that are geared towards a CS student. Not really a computer science course at all, definitely more of an English course, just tailored for CS. So, we have a university-wide requirement to give you a writing course before you graduate. Now, it's possible for us to make you take a writing course just in general, right? So we could just have you take, like, writing, period, and not have it pertain to CS at all. Like, I mean, you say it didn't pertain to CS, but it did a little bit. So this is kind of the best we can do, because we can't not have a writing course. And we can either give you a CS writing course or give you a writing course that's just a generic writing course. And anyway, our requirement is to have a writing course in the major. And this is it. So I basically agree with the rest of this. The material was not interesting or engaging at all, because I don't realistically see myself in my career needing to write most of the things we wrote in class. Probably. I think most of the stuff we wrote, you probably will write at some point, though. You'll find. You're probably wrong about that. You'll probably write at least some of that stuff as you go. Did not stimulate further interest in the topics. The only assignment that was useful to me was the revising and peer reviewing of our resumes. Yeah, I focused on that one more than a lot of the other assignments, because I thought that would be the one that was most likely to be useful to you. The other stuff, I mean, a lot of it, by the time it comes up, it'll probably be years from now. Code documentation, things like that. Maybe you're going to do those things, but to be writing like the tutorials for your projects, probably going to be a while before you do those things professionally, unless you join a small company or a startup. I learned how to write several different documents in a formal setting. This felt more like an English class than one of computer science. Fair. Though that is to be expected given the subject. It is definitely the most boring part of CS, but Gerard can make anything fun and interesting. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Though even saying that, I wish to never write another technical document or proposal ever again. Then you picked the wrong profession, man. Get out of here. Or woman. Person, you picked the wrong profession. It's a lot of writing. In fact, CS is a writing profession. You spend most of your day writing. Mostly it's code, but quite a bit of not code too. And I think in professional settings, you'll find yourself writing a lot more than you thought you would have to. And a lot more garbage than you thought you would have to. Stuff that's even less useful than the stuff that you have to write academically. But instead of a grade, if it's not good enough, you just get to write it again, and then again and again. And if you keep messing up, you get fired. But really, the expectations, I think, for most technical writing in the real world are pretty low. And you can tell that from even just like the press releases and documentation and things from major companies. They really don't put a lot of effort into this stuff. So internally, I think most organizations have that same culture. Technical writing skills. I felt the course gave me a stronger understanding of writing in the technical world, how to present myself more appropriately through emails, proposals, resumes, etc. Class was pretty interesting. It made me feel more confident about writing going forward. That's the big thing. The more you write, the more you feel confident about it, so you should always keep practicing. Useful email, resume, cover letter, code handoff, documentation and proposal bid writing skills and techniques, writing formally and plainly, general writing skills and techniques. Material of the course met my expectations. Through this course, I learned how to write in varying levels of formality appropriate for the field of professional computer science. This course had much more to do with writing than any other mathematics computer science course, so they are nearly incomparable. The material is interesting enough. There is only so much one can do to make formal writing intriguing. Thank you for acknowledging that. This course taught me that academic writing is completely different from technical writing, and I hate it. It wasn't very engaging, but it's a capstone and it's got to happen. All writing is different from academic writing, which is a shame because we really don't learn a lot of the kind of writing people do every day. You don't do a lot of 5-page essays and stuff once you're done with school. They're very useful for learning grammar and syntax and how to make an argument, but there's a lot more to communication than those things. I learned that the people in the class know very little about coding an actual project. Is this the wrong class? Did you review the wrong class? There's no coding in the writing class. It was very disengaging. It did not meet my expectations as a student for technical writing. Hopefully it told me why. I learned the basics and advanced ways of typing in multiple different occasions. I did not find any of the material engaging or interesting. It did not stimulate further interest in the topic. I learned the professional expectations in writing for the real world, whether that be for communication or project proposals. This is a very unique course in the CS department. I found the material very engaging. So about 50-50 it looks like split, which is surprising. I thought I would see more people say it was not engaging and they were not further interested in writing. I think we tend to have relatively few fans of writing, people who actually like to write in the program. I think most computer scientists are more mathematically minded and not people who tend to like writing very much. Critical thinking skills. Didn't really need any critical thinking for this class. Well, okay, I guess not compared to computer science. This course got me to rethink how to write better than any English class I've ever taken that just makes you write essays. Thank you. That I really do appreciate because that was my goal. I can't say much about problem solving here. That doesn't seem like the point anyways. Yeah, that's probably true. Better understanding of technical writing in the workplace. Good. I learned how to write more effectively and clearly. I like the resume section and proposal practice, so I'm learning about bluff. Good. Material offered several ways to think about our writing tasks and many other things to consider. Okay. Did not teach critical thinking, but didn't set out to do. Yeah, that's probably fair. Nothing. Spent hours researching, so this really helped me when it came to Googling better and thinking of how to Google stuff. I think that's, again, the wrong course. I don't know what you were Googling about writing. How do I make sentence? No, it did not. All the coursework except for the final I would label as busy work. Okay, fair, but if it's busy work, it's still writing, and writing helps you become a better writer. It's all practice. It is small-scale stuff, but I didn't want to do essays the whole time. It really only helped me write a resume and emails. Cool, if those are the only two things you took away from it, I'm still happy. This course helped my writing skills and the messages I want to convey in my writing. It makes me think of the fastest way to get my initial message across, then deliver the initial details afterward. Good. That's how you should write. So I appreciate that you have picked up that skill. Hasn't related to any other course I've taken except maybe English courses. Fair. I mean, I'm not going to get great answers in this section. I think that's a pretty boring section for a writing course. Clarity sounds interesting. Let's read clarity. He is pretty clear and understandable when teaching, but his assignments are usually too vague and lack clarification, so hard to complete the assignments the way he wanted. Well, that's kind of how writing assignments are. I mean, you don't really get a specific requirement when you have to write an email or something. You just have to do it, and then it has to be good. And, you know, the assessment of good, I try to be pretty lax on it, but that's basically how it works for most writing. You don't really get a set requirement. You just have to do something, communicate something. That's basically the whole assignment. Content presented was very easy to understand, so much that I have some lectures saved for future reference. Thank you. It's all on YouTube, so accessibility is not any sort of issue. Oh, I get it, because the difficult material more accessible. I don't think that's what they meant in that question, but that makes sense as your interpretation. The material was clear and never felt lost. Good. Instructor was always clear and thorough when covering new material. I would note that what was expected in our assignments could have been a bit more clear typically, but we had questions. The instructors would always answer them. Yeah, you can always ask me. But yeah, I think I could probably work on the clarity in some of those things. I maybe left that a little too vague. Clear and understandable. Content was somewhat unclear. Instructor stressed technical writing throughout the semester, but rarely gave us any examples. True, I probably should have dug up some more examples. Or explained what he actually meant, especially in the context of the final paper. We talked a great deal about writing emails and such, but instead of 30 crappy in-class assignments that we were supposed to be finished in an hour, I would really prefer 2 or 3 bigger essay assignments that we could work on to really develop the technical writing skills that required in the final paper. Let me do a poll and see how many people agree with I would rather have a big essay. Because that's an interesting perspective, and I would like to see if people share it. I'm not making fun of you. I just want to see if people share that perspective. I think my assumption is that most people do not like those long-form essays because they wait till the last minute to do them, and then they just end up with a really long last-minute thing to do. I think that was probably true of the final paper too, where I think most of the submissions came in like either the day it was due or after. I think I got maybe one before. I signed it 2 Fridays before it was due, I think, and I got 1 submission before the Thursday of the week that it was due. I think I got 1 submission. So that's usually how it goes with the big essays. He was clear in our tests that we had. I'd say he was clear when he was teaching. The material was hard to understand. I'm unsure if the instructor was understandable. His grading seemed weird and sporadic, oftentimes making no sense at all. Yeah, for computer science people, I think sometimes when your writing is evaluated, it tends to not make as much sense because there's more of a subjective element to it. It's hard to point to something and say, this is what you did wrong exactly. It's more like you're not communicating your message as well as you could be, and that's not really something that you can improve by just fixing a function or something. It requires more thorough improvement. Intellectual challenge, probably not an interesting section. How's the instructor in grading? I got grade more fairly, kind of hard to tell it actually happened. Some were graded fairly, others you take off a large amount of points on assignments. I like that he gave his feedback and comments for every assignment, but some comments didn't seem to warrant the large deductions that came with them. Fair. So some assignments, like the resume, for example, I didn't want to critique everyone because you weren't at the same starting point. So pretty much everybody got 100 on the resume, for example. That meant that basically other assignments I was actually grading compared to these couple assignments where I basically just gave you the default 100 if you did it. So maybe that's a little bit of that disparity. It was weird when I actually came in. I think especially in the beginning of the semester, the first assignment that I actually graded, where some people got like 50s and 60s, that was a bit of a shock. Um, but I think there's definitely improvement beyond that. And yeah, sometimes I do a pretty big deduction for what seems like a trivial thing because that trivial thing led to your point not coming across at all. More fair on grading beyond a shadow of doubt. Fair, 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 unfair, unfair, fair. So 3 unfairs and mostly fairs. I am pretty happy with that. I try to be more in the fair category, but for a writing class I expect a little bit more complaints. Focus on the learner. How is the instructor regarding your progress in the learning of the content of this course? How sensitive is the instructor to your needs? I don't even know what this question means. I don't know how you guys answer this. Wasn't concerned with our progress, no complaints, flexible with due dates, lesson set up so you could catch up later. Good commentary, available and responsive, somewhat concerned, but did it in a rude manner that caused anxiety attacked, and massive stress. I'm sorry I gave you anxiety and stress. I am. I don't like to give people anxiety. Did not care about individuals and would constantly assign busy work when his wife did not want to handle the baby. Um, Constantly assign busy work. I'm trying to parse how those things correlate. Uh, oh, like I have the baby, so I assign you busy work. No, my wife had the baby during, I think, pretty much every class session, except for one class where I brought her along in the beginning, and then she wasn't having it, so I took her away. But no, the busy work is, well, I'm calling it busy work. I don't think it's busy work. The busy work was because the first half of the semester was meant to be more of an intro, more lectures, more bringing you up to expectations, learning the formal, the informal, those kinds of things. And then the latter half was supposed to be just in-class assignments, basically, just you practicing writing over and over again. And I didn't want to give you a ton of homework, so I just used class time. I feel like, I haven't gotten this comment yet, but I feel like the lecture parts aren't all that useful, but apparently some of you guys did enjoy the lecture. So maybe next time around I will keep lecturing instead of doing the in-class assignments. But I don't think they're busy work. I think just doing it is the best practice, doing it and getting feedback on it. Also, the in-class assignments are more work for me than a lecture, because I can put together lectures mad fast. I can even ad-lib those things, or steal a slideshow somewhere. But then every time I assign you work, I got 15 things to grade at 15 to 20 minutes a pop. That's like a lot of time, so I prefer to just lecture if I can. I don't believe the instructor nor the students enjoyed anything having to do with learning in this course. Well, speak for yourself, man. Some people didn't mind it that much for a writing course. Dr. Grau is always available to answer questions and clarify his expectations on assignments. He also takes the time to read all of our assignments and grade them on time. Thanks, I do spend a ton of effort on that, so I appreciate that you appreciate it. Compared to other online courses, rate the quality of the instructor. I was guessing it was going to be pretty negative for this course, so I am surprised that it's a kind of even balance here because, it's a writing course, not really what you're into. So I thought that it would be more negative balance here, or at least more people would be neutral. So thank you for the positive comments, and apologies for the negative ones. Hopefully you explained it. I don't really like the YouTube lectures. It makes everything feel disconnected and very easy to tune out. Also harder to ask questions because I might not get an immediate response, and typing out questions answers takes much more time than simply saying them. That's fair. I'll try to come up with a way for people to say their questions without going through the really complicated hassle of having to unmute yourself on Zoom and all of that stuff. But yeah, I do especially not like the delay on YouTube. That is pretty annoying because then I basically have to backtrack to answer a question, and that's no fun. I loved how down-to-earth, honest, and accessible everything was. Using YouTube and Discord instead of some obscure application like Zoom to conduct meetings was incredibly useful. Well, I wouldn't say Zoom is obscure, or at least it's not anymore. It definitely was before the pandemic hit, but now it's like a household brand. I don't know if anyone in America at least doesn't know what Zoom is. But thank you. I appreciate that you like the platform. I liked the way the course was taught. You explained everything well. There were a few times where I felt where the workload got a bit too heavy, and that made it difficult to devote my time to the capstone course. Oh, that's true. These are paired courses, this and the capstone, so maybe some of these comments echo that. I do tend to forget that sometimes. I think a weekly assignment was fine, but sometimes the in-class assignments took way longer than a class period, which added to this issue. So I did see that a lot, that people wouldn't turn them in at the end of class. And that actually put me in a predicament because I would get the people who worked on them for a long time and did an amazing job, and then the people who worked on them for the amount of time I basically expected them to and did, not as well of a job because they did it quickly. First of all, one of the biggest things you need to learn in writing is how to write quickly, because if you take 3 or 4 hours to finish one page writing assignments, your job is going to suck. You're going to be working over 40 hours every week. You need to be able to churn out a page in 20 minutes, and it needs to be good. And that's a skill that you need to learn. So it's something I was hoping to drill into a bit. If you spend 3 hours and then you beat somebody who spent 20 minutes, I tried to make it so that you did get a better grade for the higher level of quality, but a decent 20-minute production, I tried to make sure you also at least got like a B for it. And you can tell the difference in some cases, and I still grade on quality and not on the perceived amount of time you spent doing it, but I would have preferred if everybody just turned stuff in. Maybe next time I do this, I'll just mandate it. Definitely didn't want to do that here in case people didn't want to attend class live that day for whatever reason, but yeah, I really would have preferred if everybody just did what they could in the hour and turned it in, because that's the practice I want to see you do, is writing good technical writing quickly. If you have infinite time, I'm sure all of you can produce something decent, but you won't have infinite time professionally, and sometimes something needs to be done within the hour, by the end of the day, whatever. So that's the practice you really need to start getting. I think a weekly assignment was fine, but sometimes the in-class assignments took way longer in the class period. If there could have been either less assignments or smaller assignments, I think that would have made the pairing of 470 and 475 more manageable. That said, this might not be possible if the class setup to have a larger workload in the first place. So again, I, for the 400 levels, tend to try to reach around that 6-hour-a-week mark outside of class. For this one, I tried to reduce that to more like 3 or 4, because writing is less interesting for people and some people struggle with it more, so I thought the disparity would be higher. We'll see how those actually play out when we get to how many hours you spent on your stuff outside of class. Mostly appreciated the commentary based on real-world experience. Everybody's experience is different, so thank you for appreciating my commentary, but as with all real-world commentary, 90% of it is probably wrong anyway, so don't take it too seriously. It was good as it is. I have no complaints or suggestions. Thank you. Dr. Garari is a cool dude. Best comment. I'm going to paste that one. Nothing better than being a cool dude. But I think his style of teaching really struggles in an online environment. Garari classes heavily depend on your ability to ask questions, go to office hours, but those experiences in an online environment are either completely non-existent or greatly changed. Weird that it's so different from the other course where people did go to office hours. So in response to that comment, I'd say I think only 2 people in the entire semester came to my office hours for this course, for the technical writing. Maybe a couple more with a quick question here and there, but it was really bizarre how few people took advantage of it. And until the last paper, nobody even sent me drafts or anything or asked, was this good? Some people shared their questions in general chat about assignments and stuff, but no one really came during office hours and wanted to read through anything with me or something like that. So that was really surprising me. I guess most people felt it was off the table or something, or like that wasn't an option. But I don't see why it's any different than a CS course. Of course, if you can come to office hours and review code with me, you can come to office hours and review your writing with me. Help the groups out more, and rather than boast you can get the project done fast, help them. I think that's the wrong class again. Looks like these comments are all for the other class. Okay. The 4th person down is all for the wrong class, it looks like. They are in order, by the way. Yeah. So, like, the 4th person down is always the same person. You really let me down with this class. Damn, it's personal. You really let me down, not Dr. Garari. So you knew I was going to read it. Most people address me in the 3rd person. The 2nd person one hurts. It was utter busy work and you did not teach much of value. The bluff and email sessions were all right, but other than that, I considered it a waste of time. If it was up to me, I don't think we would offer this course, but, as far as what I am able to cover in a technical writing course, that's pretty much, I think, the best that we can get. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. What else would you like to see? Hopefully somebody mentions that somewhere in the chat, but, I don't know. I don't know what you want to say. By the way, I'm not looking at YouTube chat, so if you have I saw there was a chat in YouTube, but I'm not looking at that, so if you have a comment, just put it in the Discord. YouTube and Discord much easier on Zoom, thank you. Ton of writing assignments, but I understand that a certain page requirement is required for the department. So we don't have a page requirement per se, although the last assignment, the big one, is expected to be a certain length. That was just the final one. There's not a page requirement for the course, just that it's a writing course, basically. There is technically a requirement from the accreditors that you write so many pages over the course of your education, and we fulfill that accreditation requirement basically in this course. And I don't remember how many that is, but it's quite a few. It's, I don't know, like at least 100 or something. So you have to write a considerable amount of pages across your entire education in order to be accredited, basically, as a liberal arts college. Insights on documentation resumes are the most helpful. Bluff is also an important topic that should be taught to future classes. Glad you enjoy Bluff. Handoffs are also important to teach as well. Good. Provide any feedback about the course? This course drains my soul. Sorry to drain your soul. I felt it unnecessary for this course to be a co-rec for 470. Originally, the plan was that you would do your documentation and stuff for the senior design project in this class, and that your documentation and stuff for that project would be part of this class's grade instead of that one, which I thought was like double dipping the same content, and a lot of you probably wouldn't have done great at that either. So would you prefer more of your grade to be focused on that instead? I guess I'll make a poll. That's an option. We can definitely go back to that. We can go back to more of your grade is based on the docs in the design course. Specifically, the email, resume, cover letter, informal learning, formal writing, and some of the other topics would have been much better if learned perhaps during sophomore year. So the resume one, definitely most applicable at this point, because this is when you ought to be applying to jobs. Let me hit up another survey. How many jobs have you applied to since the start of 475? 0, 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20. Let's see how many jobs people apply to. I just made some random kind of arbitrary categories there, but let's see. I was hoping that people would take those resumes and such and bring them out to applying for jobs. If you haven't started already, it's time to start now. Those topics would have been more useful to a student at that grade level. We also have, remember, a separate resume writing module, you might recall, in 270. So that was for you to get internships. There's maybe 2 or 3 writing assignments that were tied to what we did in 470, but I think they could have also easily been done in a hypothetical sense during an earlier stage. So I think it's dumb for it to be a co-rec and taken during senior year, when it might be late to learn some of these important topics like resume writing. It might be late, but most people don't apply for jobs, full-time jobs in junior year. The internship resume is usually a little bit less picky. You have that part in 270 and the Career Center to help you with that. My job here at the resume level was to help you sell the skills you already have. In 270, it's more like selling your potential, since there's probably not much to actually sell you on. This class was tough at times, but not bad. I think Dr. R did a good job teaching it, especially given that it was all online. I think the course is an important addition to the more coding-based classes in the major. Glad you feel that way. Thank you. I like this course because the material is very useful for those going into the computer science field. Good as it is, no complaints or suggestions. Great deal of this course material seems useless in the modern world, like all the time spent writing emails and other small work-related projects that people don't really care about. How well they are written in the modern age. Oh, you would be surprised how bitter people are about the smallest piece of writing that you do. We recently had and I'm not making fun of the department or anything, we recently had a half an hour long meeting and discussion followed by like a 15 message long email chain about whether or not to rename the department to mathematics, computer, and data science, or something similar, or mathematical, computer, and data sciences, or something similar. And then there was more fine points about punctuation in there too. So like the level of pettiness that people will dispute in terms of writing, you can't believe. Because it all matters, you know, it's all signaling, it's all communication. That's not to say that the name isn't an important choice. All this kind of stuff, all the different things, what you name your application, all that stuff is important. So yeah, you'd be surprised. And yeah, people get bitter over badly written emails and things too. That's definitely true. This is the one that's for the wrong course, but okay, let's read it anyway. The course was awful over the years. Students were not expected to complete their projects this year. Gary thought we could actually get them done and make it his mission to make sure our live were hell because of this preset idea he had. Well, I think most groups got those senior design projects done to a varying degree of success. Was not expecting you to have a flawless execution, but I guess we'll talk about that more in those comments. I hated this course since I considered it all busy work. Ouch. Okay. I disliked this course. Many of the tasks we did make no sense to the point it was not understandable, resulting in a bad grade. Sorry about that. Compared to your other courses, rate the difficulty. So, easier, it looks like, than the networks course. Yeah, I consider the networks course to be much harder than this one. I consider the writing course to be very easy in terms of at least earning a B, which is how I would probably rate the difficulty, how hard to earn an A or a B or whatever. So I guess I'm surprised that nobody voted it to be even easier than they did, and that quite so many people said that it was harder than their other courses. But I guess, again, a lot of our CS students are not as skilled or comfortable with writing, so that makes sense. I guess you gauge the difficulty more based on that. Workload required, almost everybody said it was more work. That's surprising. Again, I thought I was going for about a 3 to 4 hour outside of class average, with the two tails probably being some people only took a couple hours and some people took 10. So let's see how it went. How many hours per week did you spend outside of class? Look at that, I got a 4.18 average, so right on the nose. Wow, I wasn't expecting to be that accurate given some of those previous comments about the workload. It is funny that so many people rated it so difficult and more work when the network course had higher, significantly higher average hours a week. I find that pretty interesting. I guess the writing feels like more work too. You know, it's harder work than coding if that's not what you like. And yeah, as I expected, there were some pretty big tails. A lot of people just said 2 hours, and then a couple people said 5. Well, a lot of people said 5, and then one person even said 9. 9's a little disingenuous. I don't know how you possibly could have spent 9 on average, unless you just spent a ton on the final paper and you factored it in there. But I think 4 is right on the money for me in terms of the course load I was expecting. Because again, I think 400 levels should be around 6. Compared to all the other online courses at JC, rate how well the instructor delivered the course in terms of technology. Most people said significantly better, but this course got answers all across the board, so interesting. Looks like one comment here about how they didn't like YouTube. Makes it hard for us all to be listening at the exact same time. There's always different sort of delay for everyone. Also, we can't verbally ask questions or respond to questions. We just have to ask in chat, and I don't really like that. Yeah, again, that's fair. Discord and YouTube live streaming, it doesn't really get much more familiar and accessible than that. Why use Zoom when you already have such featureless and robust platforms? Totally agree there. Like Discord and YouTube, good. Compared to other courses, rate the usefulness. Wow, okay, so even after all that negativity, everybody said it was at least very or somewhat useful. That's surprising to me, especially since most people didn't think that a lot of the writing content was useful. But I guess from these comments, it looks like it's all about the resumes. Writing proposals seem less useful. It's a pain, but I know it's going to save my skin later. Okay, I'm glad you acknowledged that. The resume and proposal writing topics felt the most important. At the end of the day, it was all helpful. Thank you. Overall, the ability to communicate topics of computer science about devs and non-devs, I think that's really important. Knowing how to write to your superiors, and even in general, very important. Thank you. I understand all the things we learned about emails and stuff is going to be helpful in the working world. I sure hope so. The only useful part was emailing, cover letter, and resume. Well, at least you got something out of it. I covered what the most useful material was in one of the earlier sections. Cool. Learning to write really isn't interesting to learn, but I guess it can still be somewhat useful. If still required, it would be a lower course level. Fair. This is the bane of all people in the field of computer science. I just wish to program. Definitely not the only person with that sentiment, I can tell. There's quite a few comments that echo that to an extent. I like writing, so I enjoyed it all. Anything that talked about getting a job immediately had my interest. Good. JCU should continue to offer and require this course. We don't have a choice. It's going to be required for accreditation no matter what. So yeah, we're going to have a technical writing course, whether you like it or not. The forms it takes and what kind of material it covers can change, but you're going to have to write a ton of pages on computer science. No way around that. The only useful part was emailing, cover letter, and resume. All right, so most people thought it was not interesting or utterly not interesting, which I totally expect, again, from a writing course for computer scientists. Rate my fairness. Oof, it's one of the lowest fairness scores I have ever received. I don't think I've ever received less than 90% fair or somewhat fair. So that's a little bit disappointing for me, but I guess I kind of expected it because the writing grading is pretty subjective and people will always disagree about what they got. I did have a few people ask me when they disagreed, and we usually worked it out. So to those folks, I'd say next time you have a disagreement, don't be afraid to ask. Rate the instructor's availability in terms of office hour accessibility, email accessibility. Very available. All right, thank you. I always strive to get at least 90% in the available or somewhat available category there. Compared to other online courses at JCU, pick the statement best reflects your opinion. 3 people said it was the worst online course they had. Getcha. One of the worst, slightly worse, and then a couple people said it was one of the best or slightly better, so a pretty even split there. It looks like it leans a little bit more towards the worst category, which probably goes back to those writing people. Dr. Gar taught all 3 of my CS courses this semester, and they were all equally good. I think there's only 2 of you who fall into that category, so I pretty much know who you are. Way to de-anonymize yourself. I hate online courses. Yeah, but this is about online courses. Yeah. If this course was offered again, would you prefer it online? Ooh, another surprising one that it looks like the preference is towards online. Weird considering there were quite a few negative comments about the delivery mechanism, but I guess I'm glad to see it. I think I would like to offer this course in particular online because it's so easy to do online. There's not a lot of benefit to this in person because if I'm reading your writing in person, I have to look over your shoulder anyway. It's actually easier if you just share your screen. So I think this one I might promote offering it online in the future. Dr. Gari's streams were nice, so I wouldn't mind watching those again. Yeah, and I can just recycle them for the next course, right? Just don't even live stream, just give them the recording. No, I'm not going to do that. Okay, thank you for those comments. Let's move on to the last course, and then I think I'm going to call it because we're already a little over an hour. So I'm just going to do 470, where I have almost no comments because I didn't offer any extra credit. You guys, not leaving reviews unless you get points for it. I'm going to get chewed out just for the response rate here, probably. Every time there's a low response rate, I get chewed out a little bit because I'm supposed to bother you about it more, I guess. The more we bother you, the more likely you are to do it, which is always a problem for me because I don't like hassling people to do a voluntary review. That feels a little bit weird to me. Hassling people to do voluntary reviews. Alright. For the 4 of you left watching. But some people might watch the recording. This course is very strange. It didn't involve learning much about computer science, and more involved learning how to communicate with people in a business environment. Made me hate computer science even more. Hate it even more, like you hated it in the first place? Aw. I mean, you just finished the major, and this is probably going to be your career for the rest of your life. I hope you don't hate it. I'd like you to do something you at least somewhat enjoy. It's not my favorite thing in all the world, but I don't hate it. Yeah, this course, I don't really know what these reviews even reflect. That's why I didn't really promote the evaluation here, because I didn't really do much here except for support you and grade you. Occasionally give you some short, informative lectures that don't really count for anything. You don't even have to watch them. So I do appreciate you who did fill out the review here, but yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what you're evaluating. I learned how to properly make emails in my resume. Wrong class, but thank you. Also, how to make documentation. A shocking number of people filled out their review for the wrong course. Towards the end, there were useless lessons. I couldn't tell why they'd be useful. Basically, the getting projects from clients suck, and one semester really isn't long enough to do them. Oh, not necessarily. It can be. It depends on the project, definitely. There's always stuff that you can find. There are great, wonderful pieces of software you can build in a week, in a month, in any time frame. There is a software for it. I learned how group projects work, kind of. It did not meet my expectations of a capstone class at all. I found some aspects engaging. I learned about the real-world conditions and expectations of working in the software industry. I learned about the expectations of developing within a group and interacting with clients in an appropriate way. I also learned how to carry out rigorous testing and cover all possible worst-case scenarios of testing. All knowledge from this course will be vital in the working world. Glad to hear it. Critical thinking. I don't think you guys put anything down here. I mean, I certainly didn't promote any critical thinking. You just have to finish the project. That's critical thinking, but that's not critical. What do they call it? Material of this course helps you develop aspects of critical thinking. I mean, I guess you could argue that your project is material, but certainly not anything I did. It made me critical of other people. Oh man, working with other people is all work, all life, all human interaction. If you suck at working with other people, you pretty much suck at everything, right? Because not much you can do alone. Certainly not much you can do alone and still be successful at it. Even if you are a freelancer or a solo worker, you have customers, right? Nobody works alone. So if you learned to be critical of other people, good, because other people can be terrible at times, certainly. This was a culmination of all the CS courses I had taken so far with the intent to create a project. Yes, that's true. Similar to 270, but worse. How did the course relate to other content? I don't know what that means. It related well, but did not help me understand the content of other courses since we did not learn very much. Yeah, it's a capstone. Course drew upon our knowledge of all previous CS core classes, drew heavily from CS software development. I'm glad you felt that way. Mr. Steve was notably absent there. Clarity. How clear and understandable is the instructor? Gar is pretty dodgy with questions and would typically give wishy-washy answers the first time you asked him a question. So when you're dealing with something you're making for a client that's not me, I really don't want to give you the wrong answer. So sometimes I definitely agree I'd be wishy-washy, but I really didn't want to mislead any of you. So I'd usually go back and look into it, think about it, even stuff about the course, like how I'm going to grade it, how far along you should be. I wanted to be a little bit more careful with that since all of your projects were so different and I wasn't fully up to speed with any of them since I was splitting my attention between them. Something that was infinitely harder due to online classes. Along with this, all of his classes were not in Zoom meetings but streamed on YouTube, which made asking questions and getting help even harder. Well, you don't actually get help on the YouTube stuff, so that's a fair commentary, but not super applicable here, I think. He was very clear, but then he graded our submissions super harshly, boasting based on his personal preferences. Disagree, but okay, hopefully you justify that at some point, or told me why you feel like you didn't get what you deserved. I think that most people got almost what they put in the self-evaluation, with the exception of a few people. Most people did better than they gave themselves. I guess fine, because there wasn't really any material being taught. Fair. Dr. Rowe was not very clear for what he wanted. This one I definitely disagree with. I could not have been more clear that I just want a good finished product. He did not explain our subject at all, other than the bare minimum, didn't make this class accessible at all. Dr. R was very clear and understandable. He was able to help in most situations, from pushing groups through a certain method of development if they were lost, to helping them with the complex solutions, such as recursion. Thank you. He encouraged questions, but no one really asked any. Fair. It didn't feel like it was encouraging questions and higher level thinking. Well, it's kind of not applicable. Yeah, it didn't construct or encourage questions. I guess not. Hey folks, as we enter the final stretch, I'm making myself available to help you in all your programming needs. Yeah, I tried. Nice, but kind of late. Yeah, fair. Super harsh when grading solely based on its personal preferences. This made it oh, this is for the wrong class again. Okay. It was really hard to write for him. Man, that's annoying. We should make you guys fill in a box or something, like which class are you reviewing for? The client grade. No, I graded you. The client only told me what they thought of your performance. Didn't really know. Don't really know because it won't be graded until that's fair. Actually, at this point, none of you have your grade. You wouldn't have had your grade when you wrote the evaluation, so not really sure how you filled any of those out. You wouldn't have known what you got, and that didn't occur to me till just now. Yeah, unless you filled these out. No, I think they were over by Monday, so there was actually no way for you to fill these out before you got your grade. So I guess I just have to throw all those comments away, since you literally couldn't answer them. You started out super concerned with our learning, then it seemed like you stopped caring, and it's okay, wrong class. Okay, these ones suck. A quarter of them are for the wrong class. Not at all. He did not really teach in this course since it was a capstone. He abandoned us, and that's why our work was so bad. What do you mean I abandoned you? It's a class where you have to make work on your own. This was a class where I tried to be as uninvolved as possible by design, because I wanted you guys to make your own project, and if you didn't succeed, I had to be certain that it was because of decisions that you made, not because of decisions that I kind of pointed you in the direction of. So going back to not wanting to answer questions, which was actually a comment for the wrong class, so I realize I'm taking that a little bit strangely answering it here. Yeah, I wanted to make sure you made all your own decisions wherever possible. If you ask me, like, what do you think we should use, did a little Socratic thing with you where I asked why you want to do this or that or the other, but I tried not to tell any of you to use a specific platform unless it was really obvious that you were either making a huge mistake or that there was really only one platform that would work. And some of you disregarded that advice anyway and then proceeded to make a huge mistake. And for some of you, I thought it was a huge mistake and it ended up working out. Like the team that ended up picking XMR actually ended up doing really well, whereas I thought that would be a dumpster fire, because last time I tried to use XMR, it took me like 6 hours to get Hello World to compile on my phone. I thought, well, this is a piece of crap. I'm never going to touch it again. I thought these guys will play with it, see what a piece of crap it is, and move on to something else. That team stuck with it the entire semester and made an awesome finished product with it. So really great for you guys, because that platform's awful. Yeah, and then some teams jumped from platform to platform, which I thought was funny too. Rate the quality of the instructor. I mean, I didn't really instruct you, but I appreciate the answers here nonetheless. Looks like it's pretty spread out across the board, one in each category. But some of you are rating the wrong class, so it's kind of hard to determine. I really like Dr. Gary as a person, but I greatly dislike his methods for teaching online classes, which are lots less hands-on and made it a great deal harder to seek help. If you begin to struggle in a Gary class, you'll struggle the rest of the semester with no recourse except to go see him in his office, but that was impossible for this class. Well, you could still talk to me. I mean, I had office hours still, but this is for the wrong class again, so move on to another one. I like that the class was all recorded, make it easy to watch and contribute in class sometimes. I really don't like being graded at the end of the final project. It makes it really hard to gauge if the progress they're making throughout a semester is actually good or not. Constant feedback is much more beneficial. So I debated giving you constant feedback, and I wanted to do it in the early weeks, But it took a very long time for many of your teams to get their stuff pushed to like a master branch or something that I could sync. I don't think I managed to sync all 4 teams' content until something like week 8 or 10, so it would have just been zeros the whole time. And then kind of the illusion of progress was probably something I didn't want to show. So I didn't want to give you guys like a 10, like you made great progress this week. It seems like you worked really hard. But at the same time, I don't think you're going to be successful because you're using a bad platform or you made bad design decisions or whatever. So it's really hard to quantify those things. I think if I did this again in the future, I would try to give you more updates along the way for sure. But I still don't know how I would do them without pushing you in some direction or telling you that you're doing something wrong, which I don't want to do in this class because I want you to make your own decisions on how you're going to make the software. Dr. Gray, I know you just had a kid. Yes, I did. Thank you. But you have to step your game up. When I first took a class with you, I thought you were going to save JC's computer science department from teachers like Cider, but now you've become as bad as them. You've become what you sought to destroy. You missed a great opportunity for a meme there. I don't know what you mean by that. I wish you'd elaborate more. This is a capstone, though, so, as far as teaching quality goes, if anything, I feel like I did too much. Should just let you guys roll with it. I like the way the course was taught. A few lectures here and there and some guidance throughout the course of the semester. This was the worst CS class I've had. Remember, this is for the wrong class. It started out great, but then he started to, I guess it was grade harshly out of nowhere and assigned useless work that contributed nothing to the class. Honestly, this course was pretty awful. Having a group of 3 to 4 students who barely know any real programming. Hey, you guys are graduating as computer science degree holders attempting to get a job in computer science. I hope you know real programming by this point. Otherwise, why would anybody hire you? What job are you going to do? Do you expect people to educate you on the job? Because that really doesn't happen anymore. So, all right. And making them do a project for a client they know nothing about, and making them use languages and IDs they've never used it before. Well, hold on. You can use whatever languages and IDs you want. Of course, some of the projects obviously were structured in a way that you couldn't do them in what you're familiar with, but it was your choice. That they've never used before, just to give the students a quote-unquote real-world experience. I don't know why you put it in quotes, because it is a real-world experience. All of you did make a real project for a real client. With the exception of Runestone, every group delivered a finished product to a real client. And Runestone delivered a project to basically the CS department because they had problems with their client. In most cases, there's nothing real-world about any of this, fair. When going into the workforce, a person generally knows about the company and knows the language that were listed as requirements on the job application. No, that almost never happens. Usually, there are some languages on the job application. A lot of the time when you get hired, or more often when you go into the interview, you'll realize that one of those languages is way more important than the other. Sometimes it's not even one of the languages that was on there. Sometimes your company will do a complete 180 and transition to something completely different. I know plenty of people who are older computer scientists and they worked in a language for 10 years, 20 years, whatever, only one day to be told by the company, we're doing this now, and you need to learn it now. In fact, you need to be good at it already. Go. And if you don't, they'll fire you and hire somebody who's good at it. So you have to learn on the spot a lot in this profession. It's really rough, especially if you're working for a competitive company, but any place you work, it can happen all the time. Then they aren't just thrown right away into a project. There is a time for adjustment for them to learn, and when they do start on a project, they usually have more assistance from teammates who know a lot more than the newbie does. The mentorship aspect of it sometimes, but I don't think that's true everywhere. It's probably more untrue than it is true. So doing these projects with just 3 or 4 CS students with very little guidance and direction from someone who actually knows more than them is a terrible experience and doesn't really help anyone. Also, there should have been more rigorous project selection process to make sure that each project would have actually been doable during the semester. So I think I vetted all of them with the exception of Runestone pretty well. I think I can pretty much stand by my original assessment that all of them were doable. In fact, the project that I thought was the least doable was the one that ended up getting the best final delivery, in my opinion. So that was the Box Gangs scanner. I thought that was the hardest one, and I thought the finished product was probably the most up to par there on that one. And then some of the projects that I thought were the easiest ended up being the biggest struggle, and I'll probably circle back and see why, but it was interesting to see that disparity. But with the exception of Runestone, which I still think was doable, I just don't think it was a very productive project to do, and not a very fun one. I think they were all pretty doable. I hated this course. Making students work in groups they specifically asked not to work with could be indicative of the real world when you have a say in the project. So I guess some people didn't pay attention to that early survey where you filled out who you did and didn't want to work with. I gave everybody at least their first or second choice on project, and only one team had anybody they didn't want to work with on them. So you know who you are if you're in that team. Other than that, everybody got only people that they were neutral about or said that they wanted to work with. But just because of the way the selections lined up and the fact that healthcare majors could only be in 2 of the groups and so forth, it was difficult to get nobody with someone they didn't like. So I did the best I could do there, basically, and I ended up having to give one group a conflict. But other than that, everybody got the people they wanted, basically. I like the course overall. I usually don't like group work, but the lessons I learned from working within a group were valuable. Good. Compared to your other online courses, rate the difficulty significantly harder all around. Fair. Significantly more work. Okay, let's look at the out-of-class work hours. So my projection, and this includes one person who's answering for the wrong course, which I can't filter out, but my suggestion or my assumption is that it would be around 6 hours a week. So let's see if that's what I get. I actually get below that. I only get 5 hours a week, and nobody answered more than 6 on average. So that lines up pretty well with my expectation. I thought it would be about 6 hours a week outside, and you can see it's probably the course with the least work actually in terms of the answers here. Nobody said 9 or anything in this one, so that's interesting. Compared to other online courses, how well did the instructor deliver this in terms of technology? Significantly better. Appreciate those always. How useful was it to you? Most people still considered it useful. Interesting. Wasn't really any material to learn. The way we did these projects isn't very translatable to the workforce. I'm not sure anyone would actually include their project on their resume, which was supposed to be the goal. I think at least 2 of the teams have a strong project for their resume. Yeah, Box Gang and the automation team both have strong projects for their resumes. The Runestone team's finished product is neat. I think it's something you probably could show off. The inspector's project, the QR scanner, I think you can probably show. The sheet stuff is just not interesting enough, maybe, but I think I would still probably share the QR scanner one. I mean, I would at least put a link to your GitHub where that's one of the items on there. I don't think JC should stop offering this course. It's kind of not our choice. Oh, yeah, it's the wrong comments for the writing one, isn't it? Yeah. Again, not really any material taught here. I'd like to say that JC shouldn't offer this course, but the idea of it is good. To work on a client project, be able to write it on your resume. Just the setup is terrible. Also, I feel like most employers are really looking for more internship-based experience rather than project-based. That's true, but not everybody was fortunate enough to secure an internship, which is the main reason. It's about a little over half usually get an internship. Fairness, well, you don't have grades at this point, so this is kind of a tough one to look at, but it looks like there's pretty good distribution. Instructor availability looks pretty available. Thank you for that. Let's see. One of the worst courses, or most of the responses here. I wonder if the worst course one is another hangoff from the wrong course writing one. I hate online courses and it only made it worse. Yes, but this said compared to your other online courses. Darn you people who don't read the question. It being online is totally fine. It's just the class itself is one of the worst that I've had. Okay, well, you don't like the senior design. That's understandable for various reasons. I hate online classes. Easier to work in our small groups online rather than a classroom with everyone talking. Much easier to work together face to face. Well, I did think it would be, when HyFlex was still on the table, that it would be easier to work online than if there was a mix, if half your students were remote. It does seem like this is a class that most people do not want online, so I think we'll definitely not offer it online in the future. And I totally agree that this was ill-suited to online offering. It was too easy to slack off. It was too hard to figure out what everybody else was doing. Sharing your screen was too much of a pain. It was hard to work cooperatively. It was a lot of problems with it being online. So definitely agree that this was a bad one to do online. All right, thanks everybody for your feedback. Any final commentary on anything else? Feel free to put it in Discord or actually, yeah, just put it in Discord. I'm not watching the YouTube chats anymore. And I will read the rest of these on my own, I think, as we've been already going for a long time here. So again, thanks to everybody who filled out the course evaluations. I'm glad to hear that so many of you enjoyed the courses that I taught, and for those of you who didn't enjoy them but gave me feedback on what you wanted to see, I appreciate that and hope I can apply it in the future, and hopefully, we get a little bit in-person activity soon for classes like the senior design one. All right, everybody, thanks again. Hope you had a good semester. Have a great winter break. I am out of here.